Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Hilmarie Hutchison, and today I am thrilled to be joined by a dynamic leader who is redefining commercial strategy and brand innovation on a global scale. Jessica Hollander-Torres is the Global Chief Commercial Officer at Airwater, where she's leading brand evolution, driving revenue growth, and expanding international market reach. Recognized as one of the top 40 under 40 and a founding member of Chief, Jessica's leadership is not only about business, she's also a passionate mentor, philanthropist, and champion of female empowerment. Jessica, welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for such gracious introduction, Hilmarie. Thank you very much. I'm very thrilled to be joining you on The Matrix today.
It's lovely to have you here. So let's start off with your story. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how your journey led you to the UAE?
In terms of my background, probably one of the most important aspects of my childhood that I would say made an impact was growing up in a pretty entrepreneurial household. Both of my parents were building companies, very type A, business-minded. And I think it was really being exposed to their passion for learning and their sense of adventure. You know, they were always traveling for business. Just that sort of environment and energy, I would say, really shaped me early on. And I remember over the years having discussions and maybe quasi-heated conversations with my dad, who, of course, wanted me to go in a very traditional business direction. And I was the creative one, if you will. And so I eventually stumbled upon marketing, and it sort of became the perfect intersection for me with strategy, creativity, and just that people element. And so I knew early on, but also immediately, that was definitely going to be my path. In terms of my career, I would say that I have primarily focused more so on transformational type positions where my mandate is coming in to either scale a startup or help a legacy brand reposition themselves. I've also been involved in capital raises and obviously setting up companies to be acquired. Some might say I thrive in messy, fast-paced environments, but I think really for me, I just love to see things become tangible. I love working with a blank slate, helping to reimagine what's possible. And in terms of the UAE, well, Airwater ultimately has brought me to the region, and I feel like it's such a natural fit. I love their focus on innovation. The entire region itself just has an air of ambition, and that probably sounds cliche, but they are so steadfast and focused on building for the future. That energy for me just feels so well aligned.
I love that your parents were such a great example for you. My daughter's the creative ones. I sort of like how you used your creativity to go into the marketing side, where you were able to use strategic creativity and your focus on people already comes through even in that. As you mentioned, the Middle East or Dubai, the UAE is very much a region focused on innovation. So it's a great environment for the kind of work that you like to do, the being transformational in what you bring to companies. I know that you've worked in multiple industries and you've held key leadership positions. What consistent themes or values have guided you through your career?
I would say it always comes back to people first. So again, sort of going back to that piece, thinking through human-centric, not only design, but programs for businesses. When I say people, I'm not speaking just about customers. It's also the teams, the individuals that are part of the business. From my experience, when you're working in an organization that's trying to do something transformational, it's really critical to make sure that the people involved internally and externally feel part of the excitement, part of the growth, part of the mission. And when people feel seen and heard and valued, the net result really does provide, I think, a greater exponential impact, loyalty, and a better product ultimately as well.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference because you're approaching things from that human first approach so that your thinking in solutions and design all keeps that in mind. Now let's talk a little bit more about Airwater and the role that you play at Airwater. Can you sort of tell our audience a little bit about that?
So I essentially joined late December 2023, call it the beginning of the year last year. And when I joined, Airwater was really going through an interesting evolution. They had been very heads down in R&D for the past 6 years and were finally ready to go commercial. And ultimately, my role was to come in and sort of build the brand and commercial engine from the ground up. I mean, covered everything from defining our identity to looking at our go-to-market strategy to establishing our thought leadership and voice. You know, who were we going to be? I was involved in product design, supporting our founder through fundraising. What we knew was that we wanted to be more than a product-led brand. And I guess that sort of would take me into the vision for the brand. And
can you tell our audience a little bit about Airwater? What is Airwater for those who don't know what it is?
Airwater is a business that sits at the intersection of engineering and manufacturing. They have created a proprietary technology that enables us to capture moisture in the atmosphere and turn it into premium drinking water. We have a full suite of products under the organization. We have a host of solutions inside of Airwater, everything from dispensers that can provide 30 liters of high quality mineral drinking water through to industrialized machines that could provide hundreds of thousands of liters per day when assembled in a bank, to an agricultural project in a place where water scarcity might create challenges for communities and businesses.
I think it sounds like a brilliant solution. I want to hold off some questions on that for a little bit later, but it sounds absolutely fantastic. You sort of mentioned earlier on that at Airwater, you've overseen a major brand evolution, tying together so many of the different strings into this bow. What was your vision for the brand, and how did you go about bringing that to life?
Well, the first thing I would probably touch on is to say that ultimately the vision for the brand was not one person's. So one of the things I love about my role coming in is to really sit with the people, the creators, the founders, the technologists, if you will, in the business, and really unpack how they've been thinking and feeling about the business and the brand and the market. And that was part of the first 6 months of what I did with Airwater, was just to really get deep with the team and understand what already existed. What was the brand, whether it had a structure and identity or not? How did they see the business? And ultimately, what did the market need? From a marketing perspective, I would say my goal was to ultimately create something that felt dislocated from the norms in the industry. If you look at a lot of water brands or atmospheric water companies, they tend to have similarities around visuals, colors, different things like that. And I think for us, again, because it wasn't just about the product, we knew that we wanted to build something beyond the technology, really kind of positioning us as that next source. So my aim was more so for like a blue chip tech meets global impact, but feel relevant for the times. With our design and aesthetic, I would say it was largely focused on sort of a simplistic, minimalist kind of precision were some of the key things I was striving for. And people in design will tell you simplicity is definitely the hardest thing to achieve, but it does endure. And there were a handful of brands that were sort of acting as a North Star for us. But the Airwater brand as a whole, I think, is quite multi-dimensional. And I'm excited to see how that flywheel declares itself more as we create new products like our consumer brand.
I love that you said the vision of the brand was not just one person's vision, but you got together a lot of the stakeholders, the team, and got input from a lot of different sources before you decided which direction to take. You also mentioned that Airwater is wanting to make global impact, and it's certainly tackling a global challenge. water scarcity. How does your commercial strategy contribute to making this mission scalable and impactful?
When I was contacted about the opportunity to join, I think the thing that surprised me the most was just not really having an appreciation for how real the water scarcity issue is. This is not something that's in the distant future. It's very much a right now challenge. And so when we think about how air water commercially can help solve for that, again, our goal is really to be that new source of water. So it's clean, sustainable, it's renewable, but it really has eclipsed sustainability. And this is something that I've been chatting with people about more recently. Does that term even fit anymore? Ultimately, water powers everything: agriculture, hospitality. We hear about all the water usage with data centers and AI. Obviously, manufacturing is a huge consumer. And so our strategy specifically is to scale the commercial viability of industrial category creation. So looking at replacing single-use plastic bottles with recyclable or circular. We're replacing single-use plastic bottles, recyclable or circular alternatives. So that would be almost like water as a service, providing bottled water to hotels on site. So giving them their bottling facilities. Fairmont was our pilot, and it really just showed what was possible. And then in January, we launched our Dubai bottling facility, which can produce over 100,000 liters. And right now, so we just launched in January, and we're servicing properties like Accor, Marriott, Minor Group, Fairmont, Conrad. So the hotels have shown us the need is there. Ultimately, our focus is to take that model and replicate it across the region. What does that look like across the UAE, across MENA, and obviously beyond? The goal is really to make water something that can be local, sustainable, and premium, and not have to sacrifice any one of those three things.
As you said, it's not a distant future challenge, but something that needs to be addressed now. And you've seen the proof from working with the hotels that they have a need, and you have got something that can fill that need for them.
The other thing that I would add to that, there won't be one solution that can solve all of the challenges around water scarcity. So we are definitely focused in on where we think we can make the most impact, which is eliminating single-use plastic and providing that high-quality drinking water. Obviously, there's a host of other use cases for atmospheric water generation technology, but this is really where we're focusing our efforts.
Let's talk a little bit about AI. I know innovation seems to be a driving force in your work. So how are you leveraging AI to keep air water at the forefront of industry change?
Great question. I do feel like AI could be a whole other podcast. It excites me to no end, but it's also something that you want to have a plan for going in. I would say leveraging AI is not something new for me. It's something that I've brought into many of my past roles, mostly to help create more integrated ecosystems. So data is something that I've noticed, and this is not specific to industry. I would say it's a industry agnostic issue, but just being able to bridge data across departments, not just functions, is a challenge. And so for me, in my position, AI has really helped to bring insights and analysis to leaner teams. So especially when we're working through, dislocated CRMs and systems. But again, where we're going now, what we're seeing in AI is the new agentic AI models. And this is, helping companies that may have limited resources essentially create roles that are autonomous. So the potential is enormous. And when I think about sustainability and when I think about air, water, and different investments, it's exciting because it enables us to create many things at scale, support our developers, support our engineers, support our analysis of our water, maybe even looking into the future at integrating AI inside of our technology. I mean, there is an AI and learning model component already, but again, I feel like we're just only scratching the surface with what's possible.
So interesting that you say that. On the one hand, you're just scratching the surface. Surely there is still a lot to apply and to learn. And yet, it's so great to hear that you have actually been using AI for some time. This is not, it's sort of in some, I think in our minds, it feels like a new thing, but it's actually not that new. It's actually been around for some time. And it's really good that you have already incorporated it, as you mentioned also about being data-driven. It's excellent to hear that. It's really, really good. I'm going to bring this to a little bit more personal to you. Can you maybe share a moment in your career when things didn't go as planned, and what did you learn and how did it influence your leadership style?
By nature, I am a little bit of a planner. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm very spontaneous, but I do like to create a plan. And when I commit to a mission, I'm all in. I had just completed a digital transformation project at Hudson, and it was a big win for the organization. It involved multiple brands, global regions, and ultimately creating that unified ecosystem that we had just touched on when we talked about AI. I was looking at going into year 2 with the business, excited to sort of catch my breath, and I got a phone call from a past CEO that I'd worked for that said, "Jess, I have to talk to you about an opportunity." Once I learned about air to water and the need, the opportunity, and the fact that the technology was proven. They were 6 years deep in R&D, and it was time to go commercial. It just felt like such a perfect fit, a real chance for me to align what I love to do, but also with a purpose I felt so passionate about. So when you say, something that didn't go as planned, I was certainly not looking at making a change. And I think the challenge in that experience for me, and what I would say to people that might find themselves in a similar situation is, always stay open, because often the opportunities that are going to be the most meaningful to you in your career, your experience, even just life experience, not even professionally, they don't always come at the most convenient times. But it's that openness and that willingness to take that risk and take that jump instead of staying in your comfort zone that I think can pay off.
Excellent. That's an excellent experience and a really good learning that we need to stay open to opportunities. You never know the right opportunity coming at the right time. And if you're open to it, then it comes to you. And I also love that one of the reasons you made that change, even though it wasn't planned, because it was something with purpose that resonated with your own values, and this was important to you. And you were able to then be part of a solution that certainly is an important one.
That's been my main driver since I joined Airwater. It's part of how I work every day. I just keep thinking about the impact that our company is poised to make on such a broader stage and scale, and it's inspiring. So I feel grateful to be part of it.
So staying sort of on the topic of things that's important to you, let's talk a little bit about Chief. You're the founding member of Chief and also a mentor to women leaders. Can you explain to our audience what is Chief?
So Chief is an organization that was established to create a network for executive females, and ultimately it's grown significantly over the last few years. It brings people together for a whole host of reasons. So when I initially joined, I elected to be part of their core group, which gives you access to coaches, sets you up with peers. They also have social events. It ultimately creates a place for executive women to sort of branch out and, we'll call it, find their tribe. It's difficult at a certain stage in your career to make that time for yourself, especially if you've got a family or, personal commitments. We put our whole self into work, and then we're, striving to find that time to connect on a social level, but also professionally. And Chief was kind of the best of both worlds. So I think for a lot of reasons, it's a wonderful thing that they've created. And ultimately, again, what I really loved about the structure and why I came in early was it had purpose. It was very intentional, like the model and the offering. It's high quality. So there's no solicitation within the group. It's just they've really constructed something that I think offers more than just your traditional networking group, if you will.
Yeah, it sounds like an excellent platform or an excellent network. I love that you said it gives the gives female leaders or female executives that opportunity to connect with other women in the same sort of role.
In a trusted, safe space, you can go to your group or your network for virtually anything. I mean, I'm thinking about all the different referrals and recommendations I've sought out, and just, it's a game changer.
And I also love how, again, that aligns with your own personal purpose and values. I think that's excellent. Along the same lines, what does female leadership mean to you, and how do you nurture it within your teams?
I think leadership in general, strong leadership as a whole, really involves showing up as your full self and being authentic in that way. So clarity and confidence around who you are. I do encourage women that are looking for mentorship to really define their own leadership style. So be intentional. Don't try to adopt or model someone else's. It's tricky because ultimately there may not be the same number of examples or things for women. I think there are now, but maybe in days past, there weren't as many to draw from. It really just comes down to self-awareness and knowing who you are. So it's sort of like owning your narrative, being intentional with where you want to fit and what your values are.
Excellent insights. I love that you said, don't try and follow someone else, but define your own leadership style and be purposeful and intentional. Excellent. Now we've come to the segment of our show where I will ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What is your go-to leadership mantra?
Say less.
One innovation you're excited about in your field right now?
Air, water, what we're doing.
What is your favorite productivity hack?
Meditation.
Oh, excellent. A book or podcast that you'd recommend for aspiring leaders?
4 Agreements.
Oh, yeah, I love that. 4 Agreements, yes. What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
I would say meditation, breath work, take a walk in the sunshine for 10 minutes.
Excellent. Well, thank you for playing along. That was easy enough. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. What green pill advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say trust your instincts. I think often when we're just starting out, there is a need for permission, and we're looking at people maybe who have more experience, to provide us with that validation or permission. And ultimately, if you can hone in on your intuition and your instincts earlier and just trust yourself to make those decisions, the good news is you can always write the course, especially early on. I would also say that it's good to take the stretch roles. So even when things feel scary, if someone sees that potential and wants to give you an opportunity to stretch and to grow professionally, always say yes. Try not to be so hard on yourself. I think we're in an age of hypercriticism for a lot of reasons. Social media, not just personally, when I think about the world of Instagram, I think even professionally, I'm noticing people are having that same pressure feeling over platforms like LinkedIn, which is surprising. So I think just overall, we could be a lot kinder to ourselves. So again, if that could be learned early, that would be great. Being ambitious is good, but make sure to take a moment to recognize growth early and often. And probably the most important thing would be don't lose sight of relationships, because relationships are what will take you farthest in life, personally and professionally. Building that reputation on trust and follow through and just remaining human and authentic, ultimately, I think is really key.
That was a long list of really excellent tips and advice for your younger self, and something that I'm so sure our audience is going to really enjoy and be able to apply, especially those who might be a bit younger, to trust your gut, trust your intuition, don't necessarily look to others. But I also loved how you said, take on those stretch roles. I love at the end, don't be so hard on yourself, and also cherish and build those relationships because they stay with you throughout your career. And I think that's excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Hilmarie, so much for the conversation today. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate the questions.
And we appreciate you being here today and sharing your journey. It's certainly an inspiring blend of strategy, innovation, and heart. I love that so many of the things that you've done has been directly linked to your own purpose and what's important to you. It's also been an absolute pleasure learning more about how you're shaping the future of sustainable business. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Airwater and your work?
So anyone who's interested in connecting with me, I would welcome the connection on LinkedIn. In terms of Airwater, obviously our website is probably a great place to start. Also, again, LinkedIn. We are always looking for opinion leaders to participate in content and thought leadership. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if you're interested in working together on something.
Thank you so much for that. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and stay connected for more inspiring stories. Until next time, keep leading boldly and creating meaningful impact.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.